Hello, everybody. I'm Jake Plummer, and going into the cold tub is no fun alone, but it's cold tub. We're in the cold tub today. I hope you're ready for a great show. As I mentioned, it's just me by myself today. Nate's out of town, so I'm getting in the cold tub by myself. So I decided after this tough loss, oh my goodness, we are all still perplexed and dumbfounded and shaking our heads going, how the hell did the Broncos lose this game? A very entertaining game. There are some positives to point out, but definitely the end result is a loss, and that sucks. And that's also confusing on how it went down. And that's why today we're going to make our first cold call from the cold tub. Nate's out of town, and I thought I'm going to give my old buddy and old teammate and good friend here, Nick Ferguson, a call. He played in the number 25 in the program, but he's number 3 in your hearts behind Nate and I, of course. And it's none other than Nick Ferguson, 10-year NFL vet, a great teammate, great player. He's got his own show, the Nick Ferg Show on YouTube. You got to check it out because he'll go in on the defensive side of things and show you and talk to you about the little intricacies that a common fan might not know, but someone with a PhD in defense and in the NFL like Nick, he can show you some good stuff. So Nick, welcome to the cold tub.
Wow, thanks for inviting me to the cold tub. And I tell you, I mean, the way my body feels at times, I need more than cold tub.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question. Were you a cold tub guy? Did you get in the cold tub? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know what? When I first started, no, I avoided it like the plague. But as I started to play a little longer and get more injuries, man, that became some of a lifeline to get in that cold tub in training camp, to bring our legs back, but also during the season, because it's one of those things, man, where you're playing a lot, you're lifting, your body is sore. You're just trying to kind of keep down the inflammation, man. And so that was a huge part of what I did.
Yeah, it's interesting. The cold tub with the Broncos was really nice. It was like a big pool you could get into. At the Cardinals early on in the late 90s, we had these metal troughs with a little jet engine in it to circulate the water, and you get into it up to your neck. Remember those things?
Yes. It looked like it had one of those old school engine propellers from an airplane.
Yeah, man, you had to put on the booties on your toes and try to protect the family jewels from that cold water, man. But yes, the cold tub is where we work out the kinks. We figure out, what's next. And obviously anything can come up in the cold tub when you're sitting around shivering. You talk about all kinds of stuff. So first and foremost, I got to get to it, Nick. You posted last night and kind of broke down for the fans this confusing thing that we all are aware of now called the leveraging rule. Can you explain that a little bit and just give us a breakdown of what you know about the rule book? And then also maybe comment on, like, as a player, did you really know all the rules? Do you think this team out of the whole roster, do you think out of the 52-man roster, do you think they know the real rules of the game?
Well, I'll start with the latter one. Yes. I mean, coaches break down the rules. And sometimes players don't listen, and you don't really find out until critical moments like this. The rules, the way it states, is that they're going to protect that center at all costs. You cannot touch him after the ball is snapped. You cannot use your hands to prop up and leverage, to gain leverage, to leap over to kind of block any particular kick. And there has to be a number of guys to one particular side. When you and I played, you were able to crowd the center, even in the punter, and you can just kind of barrel through those guys. Because safety has become a big issue. And if you talk about, what the league is trying to do with Troy Vincent and, being in charge of football operations, that's the kind of idea. You cannot put your hands on that guy. And you can see the ref, he's kind of peeking around the corner, looking to see if contact is actually made. That is his position, and that's his job on the field. Once you make contact with that guy, regardless of whether the fans like it or not, they're going to call. And you hate to see something like that happen in that pivotal moment, but it gave the Colts another opportunity. Once again, you can't put your hands on that center because they're trying to protect that center. And you can see there's a Broncos player that's trying to gain leverage on that left guard or the right guard from the kicker standpoint, and he falls on top of that center, right? So it's one of these things that fans are upset, and I saw it on Twitter, and other people are trying to explain what happened, but you have to know the rules, and player safety, believe it or not, is a point of emphasis. And I'll give it to you like this. As defenders, I've always hated that defenseless receiver type of flag that's thrown. It's like, what the hell is the defenseless receiver? But they're treating that center as though he is a defenseless receiver. So you have to give him the ability to snap the ball. You can rush from the sides, from the A gaps, but you cannot make contact with that center, and you cannot land on him or use any leverage to get over.
Yeah, and it's a good rule. As I think back to my earlier days, and me and you came into the league same time. Trey Junkin was the long snapper for the Cardinals, 20-year career long snapping. I know Brian Jennings, he was at ASU. He had a 14, maybe 16-year career. Mike Leach,
yeah,
early on in their careers, they would actually like tell the defenders, spear them in the back of the neck, back here in the back of your brain when you're looking between your legs. And it really is a good rule to really protect a defenseless player. So as you said, the flag needs to be thrown. It's just really sad in that moment with a 60-yard attempt, highly unlikely. The announcer did his job. He jinxed the kicker. He said it a couple times. This guy has never missed an NFL field goal in his entire career.
Yeah.
And sure enough, low trajectory on a 60-yard kick too. So there's really no need to like go forward. It's more just get vertical and see if you might have a hand up on a low kick and maybe block it. But definitely the right call, but also hard one to swallow.
It is. And, watching the game, I was like, well, Shane Steichen's about to blow this game, right? He actually didn't call the time out earlier, and he ran, a couple of run plays, and it didn't move the ball further along to make it more of a chip shot for his kicker. But luckily, there was unfortunate for the Broncos, there was a violation, gave the Colts an opportunity to do a redo, and they were able to kick it through. So, but let's be totally honest, Jake. The game shouldn't have come down to that particular play.
I mean, it did, though. And the defense bowed up. They were given max effort to try to block it, which to me is all positives. It just really is sad that a striped, zebra out there on the field who didn't get hit, who doesn't have to worry about long-term health and wellness after the game with all the battered and bruised and beaten up brain and body, that he's the one that threw a flag to make the difference for the Colts be a victory and the Broncos a loss. So double jinx was on. We got double jinx because the announcer said it twice. He's never missed a kick 2 times. So the jinx got flipped back to us.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, Jake. Right. Okay. I've been there myself where I blame the official for making a call at that particular moment. But the rules are what they are. You can't violate the rules. And even though there's a thin line, there's a razor thin line, and we can go back and watch with referees, and they'll say, okay, well, was it objective or was it subjective? But you have to go back to what the rule said. And you can't, as a player, ever put yourself in a situation where you put the decision-making back in the ref's hands and allow them to decide the game. You can never really do that. But still, the game should have never come down to that particular kick because there was opportunities both on defensive side for the Broncos and offensive side for the Broncos to really make some plays where a last-second field goal, either by Lutz or by the Colts kicker, should have never taken place.
Yeah, you talk situations and situational ball is such that I recall, being the quarterback, I'm talking to the huddle on 4-minute drill. Like when we're trying to run the clock out, I would every play, every single call in the huddle that I would make, I'd say, protect the ball, don't struggle for extra yards, and stay in bounds. So that's coming from the coach who's prepared me for that situation. So my question to you is, can we blame the players here, or is this one that falls on the coaches for not saying in the special teams meeting every week, reminding them now they're going to do it, do not touch the snapper?
I'm not, I cannot blame Darren Rizzi on this one. One, I'm not in the meeting, so I don't know what he's telling them on a daily basis. But coaches, you go over these rules. And even in training camp, the officials come in, They talk about rule changes, what was good last year that's not good in the present. So I would like to think that Darren Rizzi's been in this game for a while, and Sean Payton hired him, not just because he was with him in New Orleans, but he's a coach that's really knowledgeable. And you know this as a former player. You tell your players a lot. You give them a lot of information throughout the week, and it's up to them to retain it. And when you're in those key situations, do you remember to follow the rules? Now, you can say, well, did he mention it to them coming off the sideline? I don't know. But once again, it comes down to execution. A lot of these games, and what I saw in the game yesterday against the Colts, it wasn't necessarily just the scheme, or not the scheme at all. It came down to execution, and that particular play right there was poorly executed.
Yeah, good point. There was a lot of fans still questioning, questioning our defense. It gave up 450 plus yards on defense. Bo Nix showed signs, but still had a costly interception late in the game. I want to talk to you one real quick positive that I'm going to take away from this that I saw early on in the game. We got a clip of Bo scrambling, executing the scramble drill to perfection. First, he gets flush from the pocket. Receivers are taught if you're going deep, come back. If you're sitting close to me, take off. And Franklin waited, made a great decision, perfect timing. Rolling to your left and throwing is not easy to do. Bo Nix is one of the best in the league at doing this. He just drops a dime on him. And this is just a great execution. As a defender, I'm going to ask you, how hard is it to stop this when you got a quarterback like Bo and an offense that can react when the time is right to make this play happen in the scramble drill?
It's really difficult. And you can practice the scramble drill all you want to, but once you get into live action, it becomes difficult because it's where you put your eyes, knowing exactly where your help is. And all of that changes with a mobile quarterback. Once he gets out of the pocket and he breaks contain, now guys are looking around in panic, like, where's my guy? And if you're looking for your guy, 9 times out of 10, he just went upfield, right? And that's exactly what you're seeing right here. So let me break this down to you, because when I saw this is the first thing I thought, right? Okay, Jake Plummer drops back. Here comes the pressure. He rolls out to his left. Ashley Lee is downfield. He catches the pass. And that's exactly what I thought. I was like, wait a minute. Is this deja vu for me or not? But yes, and this is the great thing, Jake, about having mobile quarterbacks. And I hate this old concept with sometimes archaic coaching that wants those types of guys who have that mobility to stay in the pocket.
Yeah.
No, when you have a guy that's athletic as Bo, and like you were, it puts pressure on the defense because it tests your discipline as far as your technique and also with your eyes. So I even told Bo this at training camp, man. I went up to him. I say, look, you're one of the better younger quarterbacks in the league throwing on the move. And here's things. I tell people all the time, football is mathematics. Or at least that's what I think about it, Jake, because there are more players inside the numbers crowding the hash than there are outside. So if you're able to get outside and on the perimeter and make those perimeter throws, then you are successful. And that brings me to this point about Daniel Jones. There are a lot of people who underestimated his ability. And I get it based on him being with the Giants, but he had time to, go to Minnesota, understand what it's like to kind of better your career. And that's what we're seeing right now. And what Shane Steichen did for him was it was quick throws. How quickly can you make a decision, get the ball out of your hands? We know the Broncos defense, man, they're coming to get you. But go back and watch, and I'm sure you did, just kind of one-step read. He's getting the ball out. He knew exactly where he wanted to get the ball, and then they would move the pocket. He would sometimes do it with his ability, or they did it for him, and that's how he was able to break down the Broncos defense.
Yeah, great point there. I had no idea, didn't watch Dan Jones much. The bits that I saw him in New York, he didn't look comfortable at times, but I saw a lot of really amazing, really good throws. Not quite the scrambler. I mean, he still can go get some yardage when he needs to. Not like Bo Nix. He isn't athletic like Bo Nix. But there's a clip I wanted to show you or pull up that he made a great throw later in the game. They went after PS2, not went after him. I wouldn't say go after him. They were just throwing to the guys, and I think it takes a lot of courage for a quarterback to do that. especially when, you watch this throw to Pittman. This is making a high-level throw at a big moment. Surtain even tips the ball. This is accuracy at its finest right here. PS2 makes an amazing play, yet the accuracy involved there, people don't understand. Like, we talk windows, you got to throw it in this little window. There it is. Here's a guy throwing it in that tiny little window, and a great defender forcing him to do that. There were other times they completed the ball against number 2, one of the greatest, best DBs in the league. But from my experience back in the day playing against maybe one of the greatest athletes of all time, Deion Primetime Sanders, I loved going at Deion because it's like, hey, and I played against Aeneas Williams, and I got to throw against Champ Bailey in practice and against him in the Redskins. Those kind of players make you better. But, how is it that PS2 was targeted quite a bit?
Well, first and foremost, I heard a lot of that or saw a lot of it on social media, and I wanted to pull my hair out, and I wanted to just kind of put in all caps, shut the hell up.
Yes.
Because the idea was that, well, they're throwing at him, they're targeting him. He was a defensive player of the year. How can this happen? It simply put, they knew they were not going to win over the top. And what they did was they moved their receivers around. And on that last clip you showed a Pittman. Pittman is a big body wide receiver. And what we saw also on that particular play, and PS2 was in phase with him. He was in his hip pocket. But as you see, once you get to the middle of the hashes, there's no linebacker right there. That linebacker steps up. So that's a vacated void. And that's an easy throw because that's right over the center. That's direct line. That's a straight line. And PS2 is still right there. He almost bats the ball down. And Daniel Jones, in that particular case, made what we call a tight window throw. And in the NFL, this is what I try to tell fans. In college, there's a difference between the pros and college. College football, a guy may have a couple of steps on you. That's open. What you just showed right there, that's open in the NFL with a guy in your hip pocket, but it comes down to the quarterback. Can you precisely put the ball where you need it, put it away? And once again, Daniel Jones didn't really have pressure up the middle, so he had a clean line of sight. He threw it right down the hashes, and he kind of like led Pittman just a little so he can extend his hands and attack the ball, which makes it really difficult for PS2. But once again, I'm watching these games, and I'm like, well, PS2 is not getting burnt, people. They're moving the receivers around, and when you're in man coverage, you have outside leverage, right? And you have to stay on top shoulder. So any inside breaking routes or any post routes where they move the safety out of the middle makes it really difficult for you.
Yeah, and he's going to get thrown at. I mean,
of course,
you're not going to go attack and put a game plan to go after this guy. He is one of the best players in the entire NFL. But you have to say part of him being who he is and the player he is and his abilities are having a pass rush. And it seemed like yesterday, for some reason, there was really not the pass rush we've come to expect from the Broncos, with putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, 1 sack all game. Can you tell us, take away some positives from what you saw defensively? Because I know we're all now hearing multiple people. I was all drinking the juice talking about this being a dominant defense and one of the defense of an era. They still are a damn good defense, minus a few bad lanes and angles yesterday. Yeah, they got exposed in certain ways, but the one good thing is when you get exposed, now okay, we got to fix that. But tell me a little bit of what you took away from some positives on this defense that will keep our fans from heads rolling everywhere.
Well, see, I'm not in the panic because I understand the game, and there's nothing wrong with Vance Joseph's scheme. It's not. Once again, it goes back to execution. Let's talk about some of those Jonathan Taylor big runs. It came to guys being right where they need to be. It's run fits. You can't allow a guy to move you off your spot. You also have to create different levels. And what I mean by that, if you're on that front line, you need to create some kind of disruption or some form of penetration. And then when you are a second level player, like maybe a linebacker, and third level player like a safety, you have to know exactly how to fit up. If you're not communicating before the snap, most likely you're going to fail after the snap. And when we look at some of the communication issues on some of those explosive plays by the Colts, that was just it. Guys were in position. but you can see, there wasn't a lot of communication, and that's the process. The offense comes out. What's the personnel grouping that they're in? What's the down and distance? Well, what coverage are we in? And once we figure out what coverage are we in, what kind of routes can actually hurt us? So if I'm a guy that has coverage on the running back and there are two guys outside of me and now they're formed somewhat of a three-man bunch, well, I need to communicate my way through that. And that process has to start before the ball is ever snapped. You can't try to communicate on the run. I can tell you Al Wilson would scream, yell. I mean, he would say some things that I can't say right now because of FCC rules. But it was one of those things where you have to communicate before the ball is snapped. It is taking a look, a visual image of what the offense is trying to do to you. And then you have to communicate that, and sometimes across the whole entire defense. But that's kind of what the issues are. And when you look at a game like we saw yesterday, and the whole idea was that, hey, this is going to be one of the better defenses of all time, and the Broncos are going to the Super Bowl, it elevates your level of expectations, which I'm really cool with, Jake. But at the same time, it puts a lot of pressure on them. To give you and give the listeners somewhat of an idea, we played against Peyton Manning multiple times. And you had myself, Darren Williams, Champ Bailey, and John Lynch. Even we had issues at times. You're not going to stop every single play. So fans, media, stop portraying this narrative that you're going to stop everything. You can't. It's impossible. Like PS2 was in great coverage, and he still didn't stop that play. Is that an indictment on him? No. Daniel Jones made a hell of a play. So we need to get out of this mindset that they're going to stop every single play, because it's not going to happen.
That's the truth right there. And, the overreaction, the knee jerk, like this is the greatest defense ever. It's like if I went to an ice cream shop, had some ice cream, and I told you this is the best ice cream I've ever had, and you went and you'd be like, yo, it's all right. Jake must not have much ice cream. Like when you overreact and oversell and hype too much, which is it's what fans do. Yeah. Today we're bumming hardcore. We're shaking our heads. We're like trying to find out where that ref lives that threw that flag. When in reality, it's a loss for the team, for the players. I know I took every loss. I was pissed. I wasn't really happy after a loss, especially a loss like this where one, you thought you won the game. We're celebrating only to be pulled off the field. And now we lost. We are the losers. We leave with our tail between our legs. That plane ride home would suck for me. I would be pissed off because now I'm looking at every single play I didn't make that could have maybe put us in a better position. How do you feel after a loss like that as a player on the plane coming back, after really getting a victory stolen from the jaws of defeat?
Yeah, man. I'm just like you. I'm pissed, right? And I'm listening on the sideline. I'm listening on the plane and the bus ride to see which guys feel the same way. Now, I mean, we don't have to act as though the sky's falling, but that's got to matter to you. It's your job. We're not playing this like an amateur sport, and I want to win. If you're not in this game to win, then it's like get the hell out. And I always look for those guys who are talking about what they're doing tonight when they get back to Denver. Those are the players, man, I don't want to play with, because it's about winning. If I'm willing to study and lay it on the line, then I expect for you to do the same thing. So it's really tough when you lose a game like this. And someone say, well, you would rather be blown out than face a loss of this magnitude. But here's the great thing about the game of football. The Broncos have 15 more tries, right? Yeah. Either you can kind of self-loathe and point the finger and at other people and what we didn't do and all of that and get mad, or you can allow this to make you mad and to say that, you know what, this week I'm going to dedicate every waking hour to studying to make sure I know my craft, because last week was some horse piss, right? I didn't go out there and I didn't play well, right? I didn't communicate well. And if I'm a player, and this is the type of player that I was, that if I made a mistake, I feel as though I let everyone down and I let, the offense down. And I have to say this, Jake, because I've said this privately to people, but I want the audience to know this. The one thing that I loved about you, as far as being our quarterback, you always came to our defensive meetings at Del Frisco's. No, the quarterback did that. Also, when something happened wrong in the game, whether it was your fault or someone else, you would always come to the defensive side of the ball and say, look, hey, the offense, we messed up. Hey, get the ball back to us and we'll go down and score. And I appreciate that from you, because most players don't have that humility to be accountable. And that's what you want. And that's what the guys need to do now. Hopefully over at the Broncos facility, there's not yelling and screaming and cussing. It's just like, it's teaching. Here's what we taught you during the week. It wasn't executed properly. That's why we didn't make the plays offensively or defensively that we needed to make. Now we need to correct them, because now you're in the meat of the schedule. You got the Chargers, you got Philly, you got the Bengals, and then you have the Jets. To me, that's a murderous row of teams, and you need to make sure that everyone mentally and physically are on the same page.
Yeah, great point. And thank you for those words. For me, it was always, this is a team game, and it's all about offense, defense, and special teams. I'm going to put a little emphasis on this week as the coach of the Broncos, if I was a coach, to get the rule book out too and kind of refresh ourselves on rules to make sure we don't make any more bonehead plays that cost the game, because this one's hard to swallow. It's a non-conference loss, but the ugly win last week, take your wins, awesome. But a loss like this is hard, because down the road, this could be very important. When we had the game won, it was over minus just a bonehead play or a missed communication or whatever it was. But you said it best, Nick. Get back on the field, work on your communication from the defensive line to the linebackers to the safeties, correct angles, fill your gaps. Because if you overshoot a gap, now you're leaving your guy behind you to be perfect. If he overshoots, now, that's where we see these big runs. We see these guys out of position a little bit. Those can be handled. That can be worked on. That's the one thing I do appreciate. This is a good coaching staff. They know how to get these guys right. They're going to lick their wounds, let it go. And now we got San Diego coming in. It's going to be a great big challenge for us, a conference game that's a must win.
Well, Jake, I want to add something too, because, as a former coach, there's certain things that stick out to me. And due to the new collective bargaining rules, there's so many things that you can and can't do. And for me, Bill Parcells said, the only way you get better at football is playing football. And the same could be said about tackling. And when we look at what happened with Jonathan Taylor, what he did last year and what he did this year as well, I'm going to go back and reflect on my time with the Denver Broncos. If we had a game where a running back ran for a certain amount of yards, he was really effective against us, we know what Wednesday practice was going to be. It was going to be a padded practice, and we were going to do several minutes of 9-on-7. And I would have to sit there and listen to Alex Gibbs scream on every single 9-on-7 play. And for me, that was great. Going against our team, having, that offensive line, Tom Nalen, Ben Hamilton, George Foster, and all those guys, and have Alex Gibbs yelling, it made us better as a team, because it was a thud drill. You didn't take your guy to the ground, but it showed that you put your body on a guy, you wrap up, and you drive for 5. I think that is an element of the game that is missing, and it's why a lot of teams struggle in tackling, because they don't practice it. This whole thing of, well, I'm going to run by and I'm going to flash my arms and get into a tackling position, that's great in practice. But when that guy gets in the game and that guy he's trying to tackle is Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor, they have problems because they don't know how to properly fit up. And for me, I think that's a problem. Not just, I'm just saying it's a Broncos problem. I think it's a league-wide problem.
Yeah, well, I think it is. You're right. And then we got certain quarterbacks that are, laying a little pop on a guy who's coming up to not hit him, because you hit him, you get a foul, you get a flag. You don't hit him, now he's popping you. So that's a whole nother conversation we can have at another day. But I'm going to have to wrap this up because it's getting cold in the cold tub right now. My body is feeling better. I hope you're feeling better. Thanks for being a cold call on the show today. Nick Ferguson, everybody, thanks for joining us. We miss you, Nate Jackson, but it's been another great time to get in the cold tub and shed some light on this Broncos loss, one that we were hoping was a win, but we're on to bigger and better things this next week with the San Diego Chargers coming to town. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. The Cold Tub. Peace, love, and mushrooms.